Thank you very much. Welcome to our conference talks. These talks are created as a build up to our conference on the 24th of September, our main event this year, where we would like to talk about the problems of waste and waste management and circular economy, specifically in the hospitality industry. Some of our other initiatives at Green Hospitality are funded by the Sustainable Development Fund, SDF, here in Hong Kong. And they are part of the project that is hosted by SoapCycling. So SoapCycling is the organization that hosts the Green Hospitality Conference, our Green Hospitality Hackathon, and also this conference series, these online talks, where we would like to share more knowledge with all of you on the waste management issues in the hospitality industry before the day on the 24th September, when we're going to have a lot of great speakers from the hospitality industry and from some of the service providers and across the board to share their knowledge in a more condensed way on the day itself. And we will also have some workshops on the day. So if you haven't yet joined the Green Hospitality Conference and you would like to take part, please make sure that you get your ticket. And we hope like we can see you there either in person or in some other way that we're going to work out very soon. So thank you very much. My name is Lucia. I am leading the Green Hospitality team and the Green Hospitality initiatives here in Hong Kong. And I will be the host for today. And I would like to welcome all of you, as well as our speaker today on circular economy and waste management, Tim Parker. Hi, Tim.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
So I would like to introduce Tim to all of you. So Tim Parker is the founder of Circular City, a Hong Kong-based social enterprise and tech startup looking to reimagine Hong Kong as a circular economy. Having spent time in engineering and education sectors in both the UK and Hong Kong, most recently as head of product design and engineering at ESF Island School, Tim is specializing in design thinking, circular economy, and application of emerging technologies. Well, his frustration with Asia's plastic pollution problem has turned to passion to find solutions for recovering the value in waste and educate the public that circular economy is the way forward. His company, Circular City, is currently developing new solutions that reward users for taking simple actions to reduce their carbon footprint and reduce waste. So that's a brief introduction of our speaker today. I'm very happy to have you here, Tim, today to share with us a little bit more on your views on circular economy and what you're doing, what is your startup doing in order to tackle this problem in the hospitality industry here in Hong Kong, but that is also applicable to anywhere else in the world. So I would like to start with the first question. We kind of covered it a little bit in your introduction. We know that you're frustrated by now with the plastic problem, but I would like to still ask you what really inspired you. When was that moment that you said, I want to found my own startup, Circular City, and tell us a little bit more about the mission of Circular City and your views of circular economy.
Yep, sure. Hi, everyone. I see a fair few familiar faces in this chat, so welcome. So yeah, I mean, going back to why I started to start Circular City, it all came back to plastic pollution in Asia. I'm originally from Northern Ireland, and I came to Hong Kong 6 years ago. And on my first weekend in Hong Kong, I went to Lamma Island and went on a hike. And we ended up at the beach next to the lovely power station. And we went into the water, and I remember wading through probably about 6 foot of just plastic bags and plastic rubbish. And it was such a shock. I said to the person I was with, what's this? Has something been spilt? And they just replied with, welcome to Hong Kong. This is Hong Kong waters are really badly polluted. And that essentially was the first thing that got me thinking about this. Once you've seen it once, it's very, very difficult to then not see it. So I started to see it more, hiking trails, just out on the streets. And then the more I traveled around Asia, the more it became a familiar sight. And now even more so, I'm really starting to notice microplastics on beaches. So yeah, that was that was the original frustration. I did a lot of sort of activism and trying to get people to reduce their plastic, and I have attempted to do zero waste shopping, no plastic, plastic free, and it's really difficult. It's really difficult in Hong Kong. So yes, I decided I wanted to do something about it. So originally I'm a mechanical engineer, and I am also an educator, and I decided it is probably a good idea to try and combine both of those, to start up my own company, and use technology, and in particular emerging technologies, to try and tackle some of these problems. So I started Circular City just over a year ago. We're a tech-based social enterprise that aims to reimagine Hong Kong as a circular economy, benefiting both people and the planet. We want to make people's lives more sustainable and circular by simplifying and incentivizing a sustainable lifestyle. As part of this, we look to develop partnerships with other circular models already in the city. And one of the real main focuses is to co-create shared value between the general public, SMEs and corporates, so that everybody is part of the solution. This isn't something that's going to go away overnight. It's going to take everybody to be involved with it. And this is one of the things that we think is going to be one of the real drivers behind it. So, in terms of my view of circular economy, it's pretty much the same as lots of the definitions out there. Really, it's waste is a big problem, and really we shouldn't have any waste if we are doing things properly. We should be replicating nature. So it comes down to those three key things that Ellen MacArthur Foundation defines it as. So designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use as long as possible, and regenerating natural systems.
Right, great. Thank you for introducing us a bit more about your motivation and your personal story with plastic and the motivation to found Circular City. Now, I think the tough question, after having been here for a year and trying to innovate and work on some of these solutions, do you really think it's possible to implement circular system in a city like Hong Kong, or not really? Or do you have any examples from other places where such models actually work quite well, and we could actually get inspired here in Hong Kong?
Yeah, so it's a tricky question. That Hong Kong is a fantastic city. There's so much going on. There's so much vibrancy, but it's also got a lot of problems with it as well. It's got a lot of social problems, got a lot of environmental problems, and as probably everybody that's in this group has realised, it's something needs to change. So what I think Hong Kong, I think it's the perfect place to implement circular systems. Difficulty with that though is it sort of needs everybody on board to do it. It's a high population density city. It suffers from a lack of space, and it has landfills that are very nearly full. So those three things combined should be screaming for some solutions to implement more of these things. But it needs to come with a systemic circular shift to alleviate a lot of these problems. So whether that is through better use of wasted space. So we've got a lot of underpasses in Hong Kong, we've got a lot of rooftops in Hong Kong, we've got derelict schools, we've got basements that aren't being utilised properly. Making better use of space is something that I think Hong Kong can do much better with. And there's a lot of innovative businesses and new technologies out there that can make use of these sorts of spaces to start to bring some of these circular concepts in. More sharing of resources, so sharing economy models. I'm quite a big fan of sharing economy. You're probably already aware of some of them happening in Hong Kong. So, Uber is a very good example. There's fashion rental, there is book rental, there's Airbnb. So there is stuff happening, which is great, but it's not always the material stuff sometimes that are everyday things that could be done a bit better in that regards. And the last one I really sort of identify with is the better infrastructure for circular logistics. So stuff is appearing, which is great. So there's O-Park, which is dealing with food waste. There is Eco-Park, which is set up for lots of companies to start building some of these models in. There's I can't remember the name of the company. There's a company that does collects the grease from grease traps and turns it into biofuels. There is the glass bottles being turned into bricks and construction materials. I think Nigel's on the line here. New Life Plastics, okay, they are I think at the end of this year, their new recycling joint venture to do PET bottles and HDPE bottles is going to be going live. So there is infrastructure coming, and it's getting there. But I still see a very big problem being that first mile logistics is a real big challenge. How do we get the materials to get up to these places? I'm a bit more of a fan of the decentralized model, so trying to do things in a smaller scale, community-based. But for some of these, it needs to be done on a much bigger level. But then it comes to a logistical challenge. So I think logistics is a real interesting area in Hong Kong. We've already seen startups like GoGoVan, Lalamove are starting to disrupt the logistics space, on-demand services. So I think that is ripe for circular models for redistributing resources. But I think it's just going to take a bit of partnerships is a really important thing to sort of proof some of these things, because it's very difficult for one company to try and do everything. Yeah. So I think sort of one of the main difficulties in Hong Kong is I think there's a really big lack of top-down both awareness and support for these sorts of systems. I think a lack of incentives for individuals and for businesses to be a part of the solution to this. There are lots of cities that are signing up to circular economy-based models. So Amsterdam, City of London, Brussels, Gothenburg, Copenhagen, Seoul. The whole EU really has started to get on board with this. So I think things are starting to take off, which is great. But I tend to think Hong Kong is quite often very conservative and doesn't always follow suit very quickly. Right. Examples sort of nearby, Singapore is starting to show a lot of interest in this. It's investing quite heavily in innovation around things like food security, water security, low carbon energy, because it's very similar to Hong Kong. It's that sort of very dense financial based system. It doesn't have much of its own resources or food. So they've identified during COVID that this is a big problem. We need to do something about it, and I think Hong Kong is just a few years behind on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because we have had conversations, and I wanted to plug in the topic of recycling here, because that is part of the circular systems as well. So at some point in the circular economy, we can also go through, say, recycling and use that system in a loop to recover some of the resources or the waste. So, but as we know from talking to different stakeholders in the city, this is really a problem, because either the volume of the material is not enough and therefore economically attractive, or even if the recycling is collected or the recyclables are collected, they are not recycled locally because there is no space and no economic interest, so they would be shipped somewhere else. And that's called recycling in Hong Kong, which is appalling, because you cannot just say that you send something overseas, 94% of your waste, your recyclables to overseas, and say it's recycled, because we have actually a plastic problem. And so we have seen where this trash, or the resources, actually not trash, but the resources where they can actually end up. And they typically end up in developing countries around Asia. We know that there was a big ban in 2018 from China, which was previously the country that would accept all the waste material and the recyclables, but that has stopped. And so now all the countries are trying to find new destinations, and those not developed economies are not really ready to process this amount. And some of the waste, let's be honest, cannot be processed either. So some of these resources cannot be anymore recovered. Say, like when we talk about wrappings of like chips, bags, and stuff like that, they're multi-layered materials, which are very, very difficult and time consuming to recycle. So actually the effort that would have to be put in it is so intense that the cost of the new product wouldn't be economically viable probably. So there is this issue with recycling as well, that it's important which kind of materials we want to recycle, or which kind of materials we also allow into the system, right? For the consumers to actually buy and own and then dispose of, because not everything, or not all the types of plastics, say, are the same, right? Or not all the materials are the same. So I think there is definitely what you said, creating partnerships is super important, because we need to educate people. We need to really come up with better systems. And I'm really happy that so many of the people who are on the call today here have been part of our think tank on plastic together with you. We also had a think tank on food waste. We are actually, through partnerships there, trying to build a logistics system for collecting food waste, for instance. So that looks like it's going to be a successful project in the future. And it's exactly like what you said, it's building partnerships. So we have something we can connect with other people. As soon as we create a critical mass, then can be a viable model, both for the provider, who also needs to support this economically, obviously, but also for those people who really need to and want to dispose of their certain waste in a responsible manner and actually create some circular systems in it. So I believe it's possible in Hong Kong. It's just taking a little bit of more time. And we definitely need to put much more effort in building these alliances and these connections, and then leading those projects together so that it's more efficient. Because as you said, your company cannot resolve the problem by yourself. We cannot resolve it by ourselves. We have to really collaborate and share the resources. Let me ask you another question. What are some ventures that you are actually working on or have been working on throughout this year? And we all know COVID happened and you might have had plans that didn't materialize for different reasons. And so I'm just interested, like, whether there has been any negative impact or maybe change of wind for you because of COVID, and maybe some of the ventures that you're working on right now that you would be willing to share with the audience.
Yes. We actually initially started out as creating an incentives model to encourage people to recycle properly. So cleaning their recyclables and pre-sorting them, and then depositing them into our smart bins that we were designing. But we ran into a lot of challenges, mainly because of COVID, really. It sort of landed time when we were about to. So we came into challenges around things like where we can put our bins. Trying to get a publicly located bin is very difficult. So we were very fortunate that some of our F&B rewards partners, they were very kind and hosted bins for us. But then other challenges started to come in. So people were getting concerned about hygiene with recycling. They didn't want to be touching bins, first of all. They didn't want to be touching other people's stuff. We were potentially looking to do some partnerships with some community groups that were collecting recyclables, but they've all stopped because of the contact with other people. And it proved to be very difficult. Not to mention then the logistical costs. So the logistical costs are a real challenge when it comes to recycling plastic. There's very few companies that I think make a profit out of it. So that was something that, from a startup perspective, where we were not revenue generating, it was going to be very challenging. So we decided to pivot, as I think a lot of businesses have been doing over the last few months. So we've actually decided that we're putting that on the back burner a little bit. So still working on it, but it's sort of behind the scenes at the minute. So we're moving a little bit away from hardware and logistics aspects, and we're focusing more on the parts that we can control during COVID and during the work from home periods. So we're focusing on software. So we now have more what we refer to as a holistic and gamified approach to our sustainable incentives model. We've got an app, it's called Circular City. It enables users to earn rewards through taking sustainable actions, such as refilling their water bottles, using their own containers, so bring your own mug, bring your own container for takeout, reusing bags, depositing the correct types of recyclables into recycle bins, eating sustainably, either at restaurants that we know or deem to be sourcing sustainably, or plant-based meals, and also for things like taking low carbon public transport or for walking. So one area that we think is quite important to get sort of everyday public on board with sustainability and how to reduce their carbon footprint is by, first of all, making them aware of what their carbon footprint is in the first place, and trying to equate that to easy to understand similarities. And then from that, they've got a benchmark, and then through our gamification challenge-based approach, we then challenge people to do some of these actions that are quite simple actions to take, quite often money saving as well. And then they build up points, reward points, which they can then redeem at our merchant partners. So I think our main message behind this is collective small actions create big impact. So there's a phrase, I have no idea who came up with it, but I'm trying to remember what it is now. It's not, it's everybody doing something rather than some people trying to do everything. And that's something, you know, I personally have experienced where I've tried to do everything and I've nearly had a meltdown. So trying to get everybody to do small things is going to have that bigger impact in the end. And we've gamified these into actions, into challenges. You can compete against your circle of friends, your family members or colleagues. So a little bit similar to the idea of, you know, when Fitbit had the step counter, and you could track each other against your friends. Similar sort of concept for sustainability. Users are rewarded for completing these sustainable challenges through our partner businesses. So it could be coffee shops, restaurants, it could be sustainably focused shops, it could be cinemas, and you know, essentially they use their points for discounts on their purchases. So it could be 2-for-1 coffee, it could be $20 off, 10% off. But this idea of involving everybody in the solution, you know, everybody's responsible in some way for adding carbon, for adding waste. Everybody needs to be a part of that solution to it as well. And we think this is one way to sort of pool those different sectors together. And then we're also developing sort of corporate packages as well to co-create this idea of impact through all their employees, and not just the CSR team that are either handing money out or are you know, going and doing some volunteering hours. So it can involve everybody in the company doing individual actions, and everything's measured. We've got all the data, and that data then is for us, we think that's a really important thing, to then have really solid evidence that these measures can create impact. And this is then stuff that we can take towards you know, trying to change policy on you know, whether it's recycling, whether it's reusables, whether it's sharing economy. So yeah, we think that's quite powerful.
Right. I mean, changing the habits is probably one of the most difficult things, even in any of our personal lives. You know, when you want to change ourselves, it's probably the most difficult thing. And so having maybe like a reminder like this that motivates you or makes it more fun is probably something that people would like. And because we have so many people on the call today, I would actually pose that question to everyone, like, who would like to try this app and challenge someone else? Just, you know, heads up, and why don't you just post something in the chat? It would be fantastic to hear from you. You just also can introduce yourself if you're where you're connecting from and where you would want to actually try that. And at the same time, while I'm just inviting you to really share in the chat and use our chat as well to interact with Tim and with us. So tell us first what you would want to try this app yourself, because I know that Tim is going to be testing with his team. And so maybe you can get an invitation to be a tester later on and try it out as one of the first ones. But also, I'd like to say that if you guys have any questions, please do use our chat, post the questions, or any sort of observations or good ideas or good practices from your own businesses or anywhere where you're located, so that we can also get inspired and learn from each other in this call. We will address those towards the end. I see also already David Natspeed has shared a comment, and I'm going to read it out later in a Q&A session before we wrap up. So feel free, anyone who you have any questions for Tim or about circular economy, you want to share something, please feel free to share it in a chat group for now. And thank you, Tim, for introducing us to the app. I mean, personally, I would love to try that. I think it's a good idea. Are quite hooked to that. I feel like it's a cool thing, and I would just log in my steps or something just to see like and it's kind of fun. And physically, or can like share the time with our friends. Maybe the games are also a little bit more fun to connect with the others and know what they're up to and do something meaningful. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for educating people about sustainability also this way, and showing them like how they can lower their impact on the environment by using the app. For me, I work at the University of Hong Kong. You work at a school a little bit lower level before the university. Actually, because we discussed this previously, so I wanted to ask you, because you work on the circular economy and design thinking things also as part of your profession at school. I wanted to know, what is the younger generation? How are they in terms of thinking about sustainability? hospitality industry is heavily F&B sector, and that's really dependent on us customers, how we behave and our behavior, because not taking those disposables or our portions when we go eat out is really important. I feel like we really have to educate consumers and ourselves on this and be more diligent. But I would like to know what is the new generation thinking and how they see this from your experience of teaching this subject.
Yeah. So I teach design technology and engineering, and over the last 10 years, I think it's become much more involved. So before it was a lot of just talks about lots of bad stuff that's happening in the world, whether it's plastic pollution or whatever other environmental stuff. And I think we're starting to see more students want to actually get involved in the solution side of it, which is great. But a lot of that just comes down to the opportunities that they have to get involved. Hong Kong's a difficult place to get involved in some stuff because it's, obviously there's beach cleanups and that sort of stuff, which is very worthwhile. And, it's obviously both educating, but it's also, you feel good after you've done it because, you've made a bit of a difference. But to get involved in anything sort of more, I guess, concrete, it's quite tricky. I find there's not much choice. So, for example, if we talk about food waste and food choices for sustainable choices, how many sustainable restaurants are next to a student's flat where they know that they can actually get sustainable food that is being sourced correctly? It's very difficult to find that information out. Similarly, even in school, the portions that they get given are very large, and a lot of it gets thrown out. And we've tried speaking to the catering company, and it's not really interested, which is very frustrating. And the students, get frustrated by the choice of the meals because a lot of the stuff that students don't like, so they're just binning it. But we're starting to see students really get involved in some of the things. So we've got compost machines now in school. I've been working for the last few years with plastics recycling. So we've been building machines to shred up single-use plastics and then extrude it into beams and sheet press it into sheets. And then we put that inside our CNC machines and we create furniture from it. So that has got a lot of attention in school. We've been quite lucky. We've got a lot of funding for it as well. And interestingly, it's mainly the girls that are quite interested in it, which is very different to the usual perception of engineering. So being a mechanical engineer myself and having taught it for a long time, tends to be a very boy-heavy subject, despite the many attempts, to get more girls into the subject. But this is something that we find girls are very interested in. I think it's the having impact behind it and having purpose behind it. It seems to be a bit of a driver. So it's great. We've got girls in using all the machines, and they're really enjoying it. And they're spreading the word to other students. I've got a group of 5 girls who have now organised for an extracurricular activity to bring students across. We're currently in 2 campuses at the minute, to bring the younger students across to a campus where we have the machines and start teaching them about it and getting them involved. So yeah, it's taking off, and I think it just comes down to opportunities, really. What opportunities do students have to get involved in some of these things? We're in a very fortunate position as an international school because we have those sorts of facilities, but local schools don't have, workshops with milling machines and CNC machines. So we would like to do more outreach in terms of linking with partner schools and involving them in making. And it all comes down, I think, to better design, designing out waste in the first place. So I've been developing a design for circular economy course, and it's all based around this idea of, at the end of that product's life, it should not end up in a landfill. How do you back design it to not end in that way? So yeah, it's exciting times, I think, and we're very fortunate to be in that position where we have the flexibility in our curriculums to be able to do that sort of stuff. Again, a lot of schools wouldn't have the opportunity to do that. Because it's very
I'm sure that I actually really love the machine and how you're actually building the circular system within your own little environment. That is cool, which just resembles a little bit like, it could be a hotel, it could be a restaurant. Like, then if it's possible at a school, I believe it will be possible in other smaller organization or a similar organization to that. So that's something inspiring. I would definitely want to share more about that. Maybe we will share some of those ideas later in some case studies and see whether some of our partners in the industry could actually take some inspiration from you, you know, and from your students. Perhaps the students could teach these establishments on how to recycle and then create circular systems in there. And then maybe we find more opportunities for students as well to apply this knowledge in a practical manner. That would be fantastic. So let me go to my last question from my end, but then I hope that we're going to have more questions from the audience. So I still invite more questions to be posted in the chat group. Please feel free to do that. And I have one crucial question for Tim. So again, back to the subject of COVID. We have seen a surge in, of course, using the mask, single-use item, but in the hospitality industry specifically, there is a concern because it's such a contact-based business, right? It's a service industry. So we have either people coming to a hotel or flying the plane, or they come to a restaurant to eat there or take out, right? And now mostly people take out because either restaurants cannot operate or people just don't want to sit in one space with other people and other diners, which is reasonable, I guess, or normal to fear to get infected or get exposed to a virus. But then, of course, with that comes the surge in use of the takeaway, say, items, right? The single-use items that the restaurants would package their food in. And so we know that there's the health issue or like the perception of the customer on this. How can we, what is your personal trick maybe or tip that you have, or how do you personally do that? How do you implement circular economy in these difficult times in terms of, say, dining or other things that are happening around us? Do you have any tips to share for us as consumers? And is it even possible to live any sort of circularity in these times with the public health kind of concerns among the customers?
Yeah, it's challenging times for environmentalists right now. So yeah, I mean, first of all, I should point out that I'm definitely not a medical expert in terms of, what's safer, but I know there's a lot of studies coming out by scientists to say that there's little to no proof that single use is necessarily safer than reusable, and that the long-term consequences of such massive shifts to single use is likely to cause more problems further down the line. But unfortunately, people, and it's completely understandable why people might think that single use is safer. There's still an awful lot not known about COVID and the transmission of it. So I can understand why a lot of people, and a lot of restaurants and stuff as well are saying no to reusables. I find that a lot of coffee shops are refusing reusable mugs, which I personally find a bit frustrating because they refuse my mug, but they won't refuse the cash that I'm handing over to them, which has been touched by probably about 20 other people in that day. So everybody's going to have different views on this, but my view is, I think maybe a bit of a check on this and maybe trying to find some more scientific evidence that this is not as big a issue as it some places are sort of claiming it is. Other things that I've seen some restaurants switching completely to single-use plastic for dine-in, not just takeaway, it's dine-in, and I find that to be quite stressful. And they are saying that that's what they think the customers want because they're worried. So, but they just want to get them in the door. My argument on that is, are you throwing out your frying pans and your woks and using single-use ones of those as well? It's at the end of the day, it comes down to good hygiene in your restaurant and cleaning stuff. That should be enough to sort of guarantee people. In terms of sharing economy and circular economy, it's taking a massive hit at the minute because of this. I think until a vaccine's developed and proves effective, it's going to be really difficult to bring in any new sharing economy business models. We actually had a circular takeout model for reusables. So yeah, we had a reusable model ready to pilot, but we had to basically shelve it because the current circumstances of concerns over hygiene. It would be business suicide really to attempt that at the minute. I think it will be something. I think the low-touch economy is here for the next few years. I keep my fingers crossed that the sharing economy will start to re-emerge and it'll come back stronger than ever once a vaccine has been developed. And hopefully some more scientific evidence is going to come out and we can start having conversations around, what's the facts on transmission and this sort of stuff, and what regulations maybe that need to be brought in around it. That my only sort of, I guess, piece of advice on this one would be, or it's not advice, maybe don't take that as actual literal advice, but my plea maybe is during this period, first of all, support local, support your local restaurants. They're struggling at the minute. Try to bring your reusable takeout containers if they'll accept it. I've actually been really impressed that nearly all the local restaurants in my area of Tai Hang have all accepted it very happily. And they always sort of give me a good nod of well done, which is reassuring, it's good. So definitely try it. And as last resort, if they won't and they give you a takeout container, before you recycle it, wash it, because if it goes in the recycle bin, it's not washed, it's contaminated, it's going to cause problems. Albeit not all recyclers will take polypropylene containers or polystyrene though. That's another big problem. Right. It would be great if one of the government recognized plastics that they are recycling would be polypropylene, because it's still a massive type of plastic that's in Hong Kong at the minute, but it's not officially one of their. Maybe Nigel can add a bit more on that. But as far as I'm aware, it's type 1 and type 2 that are the generally collected ones.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing the tips. I think that's really insightful. And I mean, we're going to have Nigel at our conference to share his expertise on that. So all of you who are interested in more about recycling, plastic, etc., then tune in on the 24th. Come and see us at the conference, or tune in if we will have to go online. We will see what happens. Thank you, Tim, so much for responding to all the questions and sharing about what you do. I have a lot of actually contributions here from the audience, so I'm just going to go one by one with them. We have about another 10 minutes or 15 minutes to respond to this question, have a conversation. So David has every bit of Hong Kong's rubbish incinerated cleanly and converted to ash to use in cement. Nothing happened. Why not? Well, we don't know, but like, it would be great to find out. So maybe we're still putting this on a back burner and to find the answer to this. And Hong Kong balance sheet, why has there been no plastic recycling until I think this year? Well, that's probably something we could ask further at our conference. We will have representatives from the agencies that handle the recycling and the environment here in Hong Kong. So we would be super happy to share that with the right people who actually can do something about it and can think about it. I personally don't have the answer to that. The history of recycling and the waste management in Hong Kong has been pretty rough. We have actually shared the article about the history of recycling in Hong Kong and waste management quite recently on our social media, on our LinkedIn. So go and check it out. It's really helpful. Also, we have written a report on waste management in Hong Kong where we reference this resource. So I think we could learn a lot from there, specifically like what the different issues are. On the call with us here today is also Camille, who is our researcher, and so she'd be probably able to respond to that. She's the best informed about all waste management in Hong Kong, I would say, by now. So thank you for your contribution, David. We're definitely going to keep that in mind and ask these questions further in our research and perhaps research more on that aspect. We have Lisa, who is asking, what is the name of the app, please? So there's already a interest in your product. I guess you will need to follow Circular City when it goes live, or drop a message to Tim, right?
Yeah. So it's launching in about a month's time. We are looking for some private testers. So if anybody is particularly interested, if you head over to our website, www.circularcity.asia, and at the bottom of the form you can put your details in, and yeah, so we're keen to get people, give us feedback, see what you think about it, suggestions, definitely.
Fantastic. We will share with your website as well with all the people who are on the call today so that they can check it out. We have another question from Dean. Hello team, congrats on your hard work and innovative approach. You mentioned corporate package. Can you explain more how you address corporates? Are you offering a platform for their employees to engage and start measuring their impact? Or are you helping enterprises to measure and improve the impact of their core business operations?
Essentially sort of both. The first one would be people's own personal impact, and that can include stuff that they're doing in their business operations. So their lunches, their water refills, what they're eating, their energy usage, this sort of stuff. But then we are looking to, and this work comes back to the idea of partnerships for the goals. We're looking to work with one or two corporates to help us co-create some of that. What that corporate package would be and how we can, in particular, target some of the areas within the corporate themselves that they are looking to try and improve on. So we are very keen to do integration. So we love a bit of API integration. So linking in with other services, with other businesses, other apps. It all comes down to impact data at the end of the day, and that's what will show if things are working and people are making improvements. So yes, do feel free to reach out to me, either on LinkedIn or through the website. I'd be quite happy to have a bit more of a chat about that one.
Great, thank you. Hope that responds. We've also, Nigel, to be a true circular economy, we need an output for the recovered materials. Unfortunately, Hong Kong has little industry left. If we could access the industries in the Greater Bay Area, then we could make the move. What do you think about it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's very little manufacturing at all in Hong Kong anymore, which is sad, especially when I teach design, technology, and engineering. It's something that a lot of students might not want to do because they don't have it. Again, it comes to this idea of opportunities. There isn't the opportunity in Hong Kong for all of this, but that doesn't mean that there can't be opportunity for it. I think circular economy brings around so much opportunity for creating new manufacturing businesses. Whether it's based on plastics or whether it's things like food waste. There's companies that are turning coffee grounds into disposable compostable kitchenware. There are ones turning it into briquettes for fuel as a much reduced carbon emission fuel. There is bread to beer, turning stale bread or unused bread into beer fermenting. There's orange peels from orange juice and this sort of stuff being turned into whether it's cosmetics or whether it's kitchen cleaners, those sorts of things. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do stuff. It's generally going to be fairly SME style, but what I really wish that there was is an innovation space somewhere in Hong Kong that had proper workshop facilities. It had access nearly batch size production, small size batch production, where startups or innovators or engineers can actually just go and have a space to experiment and do small batches to be able to proof their concepts and then be able to gradually roll this out on a bigger scale. And I think Hong Kong's really lacking on that at the minute. There is the likes of Cyberport and Science Park, but it's very into a lot of those things. So see more, or whether it's innovation labs. But yes, Greater Bay Area for sure. It depends whether or not, and again, Nigel's an expert on this. At what stage they will accept plastic back to the mainland. Is it flakes? Is it pellets? How clean does it have to be? Because that's going to be the real limitation on that one.
So perhaps we need more collaboration across the border as well with within the Greater Bay Area in Hong Kong and connecting in there. I see Mark Harper is here and has responded to David Nesbitt, I guess, his question, so about recycling of plastic, which was in Hong Kong previously, although only on small percentage, less than 15%, and most was exported to China. Kind of to Southeast Asia that we also covered because of the ban from the mainland. That the facility that is opening this year, so in collaboration with Swire and the New Life Plastics is born, and we hopefully going to have a better facility to at least process the plastic bottles coming towards the end of the year. So Nigel is here as well, and is a joint venture of Alba Baguio and Swire Coca-Cola. So we already again see the partnership here that is actually kind of accelerating this, at least this little bit and this little contribution to make the city a bit better place. Great, thank you, Mark, for sharing that. We've got Camille's contribution. I'm gonna read it out on the topic of changing personal habits. What I mentioned. There is a great book called Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. The book is not a to-do list, it's more a tool on how to understand yourself to apply the best practices in order to get ourselves to build a habit. I'm saying this because, first of all, it's a great eye-opening book, and secondly, the author builds a model of how people react to expectations, inner and outer, and she says that most of the people are obligers. They respond very well to outer expectations, but not inner expectations. And questioners, they respond well to inner expectations, but will question outer expectations before doing so. As recycling can be both an inner and outer expectation, I think it can be an interesting framework in order to get people to recycle, to see what can motivate them, because I think that even if monetary reward can be an efficient strategy, not everyone will be motivated by that. The book, The Donut Economy by Kate Raworth, actually questions monetary incentives. My point with all this is, do you think monetary incentives is enough? Are you thinking about other types of incentives, like nudging to some extent, that you would like to develop?
Yeah, sorry. So that was quite a lot to take in. I'll maybe just comment on those sort of last bits of the, the idea of the incentives model. And actually, Mark's just posted on the chat that extended producer responsibility will be a game changer in Hong Kong if it comes in. To add value to the material right from the sort of get-go makes a big difference for the recovery side of it. I think in terms of the monetary value, I still have reservations as to how many people will find the value of it useful. Hopefully it might go up a bit from what some of the current RVM machines are offering. I know some of them are offering, I think it's about 10 cents or something. And I don't always think they're in the most convenient locations. So to bring my whole bag of bottles quite far away, it's for maybe $2. Some people will, and I know some people do, because I've seen people outside the RVM machines, and it's great to see more of them. We've gone down a bit more of the approach until something like the extended producer responsibility comes in, and some of that money might be available for the likes of us to help with some of the collection. We've gone down the route of this co-creating rewards through partnering with F&B, partnering with businesses to offer discount rewards in exchange, essentially, for a new marketing platform that is focused all around sustainability, showing that they want to be part of the solution. Because I know most hospitality is really, really struggling with this idea of how do we do takeout without polluting. There's literally no right answer. Reusables is the best one, but at the minute that's not in Hong Kong. So yeah, I think there's different ways to do the incentives model. I think the extended producer responsibility will make that so much easier and much more accessible. And I know it's proved really, really effective in other countries. Yeah, and I know, Mark's pointing out to recovery rates for aluminium cans is over 80% in Hong Kong through the informal sector collectors, only being given a few cents. So, there's opportunity there for jobs to get that. It's the other problem as well with plastics is there's so many different types of plastics. A lot of people don't know what types. One of the things that we're developing is an AI recycling sort of recognition. So when people are, hold up their recyclable, it will tell them, can you recycle that in Hong Kong in this particular bin or not? And if you can't recycle it in this bin, is there another bin nearby that will accept it?
Right.
Because some different contractors are doing different types. So that's something that we're sort of working on in the background. And I think that will be quite a big sort of game changer as well, to be able to educate people there and then, yes, I can, or no, I can't. And again, it's building data. How many of these things are people scanning? and it can't be recycled, that's data that, again, we can take back and we can say, okay, there is opportunity here to try and do some of these things.
Oh, hello, there is your baby. The newborn baby just gave us a shout out. Welcome to the new recycler and circular economy enthusiast to your family.
A great circular baby when he grows up. He's probably going to hate it.
Right. I think that we should be finishing soon. There's so many questions in the chat. I'm really impressed, and it's fantastic to see so much sharing, and I hope that's been useful for you. I think we won't have any more time for the questions to address them in this call, but I will make sure that I will forward your questions to Tim, and we will circulate the answers to these questions in our follow-up message. So don't worry, you all gonna hear response to these questions, so we're gonna take care of that. I'm sorry we cannot cover it in this session because we are running out of time, but we will have more opportunities to cover these questions in our conference on the 24th of September. So, if you're coming down to see us, if we're able to do it in person, then fantastic. We're gonna have a great discussion with some of you on this call and more experts. And for those of you who are not gonna be able to come down, and we are definitely gonna bring more content to you, either through our online talks or our written contributions, our newsletter. So just make sure that you sign up for our newsletter, then you will receive the notifications on the events like this one and other ones that we are putting together on our research that our Camille is writing and other initiatives. With all that, I have we have shared with you a feedback form. I would really like to ask you to fill out our feedback form. It's here in the chat. I would like to ask Olive to reshare it again. And if you could spend 1 minute to just respond to a couple of questions, that would be fantastic. We would really appreciate that. Our project is funded by the Sustainable Development Fund of Hong Kong, and part of that is also for us to provide feedback on our sessions from people like you. So please tell us what we could do better, whether you have enjoyed the session, whether you have learned something new. That would massively help us and everyone to design better programs in the future. So with having said that, thank you, Tim, very much for joining us, for finding the time to be part of the talk. And I would like to thank also everybody who was on the call today, who found the time to spend 1 hour of your busy schedule with us. Thank you so much for participating, and I hope that we're gonna see you soon at our events. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for giving up an hour to listen to me.
Thank you so much for sharing, and we're gonna be in touch. Thank you, and have a nice day, everyone. Bye.